Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report in a pre-market daily editorial on Wednesday, December 3rd, chatting with our good friend Dave Erfle. Dave is the founder and editor of the Junior Miner Junky. A lot for us to cover here. We're going to touch on the moves in silver and gold, but we're also going to talk about some recent news, some out of Thesis Gold, the PFS. We also are going to touch on the Newmont Barrick merger and maybe some other news that we think is important to cover. Dave, starting off just with simple comments on silver and even tying in gold, but let's start with silver. Look, silver's been in all the headlines because of just how strong it has been moving, closing in really on that $60 an ounce level. Just last month was a very good month for silver, and this month has started off definitely on the right foot as the push higher continues. Thoughts about this silver move, where we could be going from here, and the momentum truly behind silver?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a short squeeze to me. I mean, it's got all the earmarks of one, and I think it's around $58 an ounce here. I mean, sure, you had 45-year resistance at $50 an ounce. I mean, when it breaks out above there last Friday on a daily, weekly, and monthly and closes way above $50 on a monthly closing basis, that's a solid breakout. And you got a lot of people scrambling here, and you've got supply constraints. You've got fifth year now of a structural deficit. I mean, there's a really strong wind at silver's back here. And the technical targets, I think the short-term targets are 62 and up to 66. But the long-term technical target of that breakout is $96 an ounce. So I wouldn't even be surprised if that got hit at some point next year. I mean, gold broke out of just a 13-year cup and handle pattern, and it went from 2,000 to 3,000 in a little over a year. So yeah, I mean, it's really explosive move here for silver, but it could be very volatile. There's going to be futures traders that are going to get whipsawed out of positions on both sides, both bulls and bears. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But as far as stocks are concerned, I mean, it's just buy, hold, and trim. Continue to buy, hold, and trim, especially on this breakout. It's a really strong move, and silver can have these really strong moves in both directions. So yeah, we could see $60 an ounce here pretty quick. And we got the Federal Reserve that looks like they're going to lower rates here next week. I think it's 89% certainty in the CME Fed Watch tool that the Fed's going to lower rates again. So that's being priced in. And it looks like Kevin Hassett's going to be the next Fed chairman. Trump is probably going to announce it at the beginning of next year. Bassen said he doesn't want it, and it looks like it's going to be Hassett, and he's the Trump yes man to lower rates. So, all the wins are at the back of both gold and silver here.
Well, Dave, just to follow up, when you consider the fundamental and technical stew that you just laid out for the metals, it's very encouraging. And if silver does ratchet up to the cup and handle projection up to 96 or above, that would be a big move in the equities. But I've got a lot of emails coming in over the last week or two, and I'm sure you do too, about people that are at an indecision point. Like, should I keep pressing the bet here? You said buy, sell, buy, hold, and trim. Well, between buy, hold, or trim, what would you be doing if you didn't have enough position? I know that you and your subscribers are well positioned, but if you're on the sidelines watching this, would you start averaging in here for an even higher breakout in silver, where it just keeps pressing the bet up to 60s and 70s? Or would you wait for a pullback? Do you think we're due for a pullback that would be a buying opportunity, or is the train leaving the station here?
Yeah, I mean, it sure looks like the train is leaving the station here for another move higher. But as far as, chasing stocks, I never advocate that. There are still plenty of silver juniors out there and gold juniors out there that are massively undervalued and are at better entry points. You just got to make sure you get into the right ones. But something that has gone straight up and is extreme overbought above 90 on the RSI and on a monthly basis, you might want to stay away from something like that. What you want to do is you want to look at valuations. You want to look at peer valuations. You could see something that's already had a really strong move, but it's still undervalued to peers, and it might still have a ways to go before it has a decent correction. But you have to take it on a case by case basis is basically what I'm trying to say.
So, Dave, when you're looking at valuations, then are you talking ounces in the ground, what those are getting valued at? Are you looking at discount to NAV from economic studies? It's hard to value exploration plays that don't have anything. So, what do you use to value these companies and compare them?
Yeah, I mean, net asset value compared to their peers as far as later stage companies, companies that are at the feasibility stage. But if you're looking at something at initial mineral resource stage or a pre-PEA stage, I mean, those companies, most of them are trading at less than $60 an ounce on the ground as far as gold is concerned. So you just want to look at the peer valuations. Let's say you're looking at a company that is PEA stage, they're about to announce a PEA. Just look at other companies that have just done the same thing and look at their projects, look how big they are, look at the jurisdiction, look at the man. I mean, just all these things you got to look at.
Well, Dave, let's just do a live case study here because a company that we all follow here on the show, and I know it's something you follow in your newsletter, it's something I follow, it's something we follow at the KE report, is Thesis Gold, traded on the TSX-V under the ticker TAU. They put out a PFS yesterday, their pre-feasibility study for their Lawyers Ranch project, an after-tax NPV 5% discount rate of 2.37 billion and a 54% IRR. But consider that that's in the backdrop of $2,900 gold and $35 per ounce silver that they use as the metal assumptions. Obviously, it's worth a lot more than that at today's metals prices, but very strong PFS from Thesis. How would you analyze that one?
Yeah, I mean, being it's a JMJ top 10 company and my subscribers and I have been in it for a little over a year, I sent out a flash alert to my subscribers, telling them this is how exceptional this PFS is. I mean, like you said, at 2,900 gold and $35 silver, which is what the study was done at, the IRR, after tax IRR, is 54.5%. And the payback periods is a little over a year. But if you just up it to $4,100 an ounce, which is still, $100 an ounce lower than spot, and $51 an ounce silver, which is now $7 below spot, that would be like a 6 or 7 month payback and an 88% IRR after tax. I mean, this is a fantastic project. And the thing about it is there's so much upside left. I mean, they've proved up proof of concept here, and they've proved up a little over 5 million ounces total, but the PFS only shows 2.9 million equivalent ounces with a very conventional flow sheet. But the company's now looking to capture the inferred resources, and then they're going to expand the underground resource into the feasibility study, and that's targeted for, I think, the first half of 2027. But the thing that I latched onto was, with 23% of the value coming from silver in this project, while the silver price is screaming higher here, the silver component is basically being ignored by the market. And as we know, there's very few high quality silver deposits being developed right now by juniors. So when this comes into production, it's going to be producing a lot of silver.
So, Dave, you've been on the show many times mentioning these sort of companies that are at similar stage or even earlier stage and talking about how you want to see them start raising the money to potentially build this thing. Thesis Gold market cap right now sitting around $570 million Canadian. The capex for this asset, at least initially in that study, is $736 million. That's probably in US dollars too. So, is that what you want to see next, or is it just simply continue to grow this thing, maybe update this PFS later on down the road?
Well, they're still a year and a half away from a feasibility study. So I'd like to see them maybe start to raise the money in late 2026 or maybe early 2027. So yeah, I mean, that would be a nice thing to see. And also at the same time, you want to see them start hiring mind builders on their management team to show the market, hey, we're going to build this thing.
Well, Dave, When you consider the valuation of where they're at as a PFS stage company, another question we get a lot is what kind of a multiple should a PFS company get versus a feasibility FS company and so on. And then once they have the capital stack, obviously the more de-risked, the better the multiplier. But to the point you made at $4,100 gold and $51 silver, this project's actually worth $4.36 billion. So their 570 million market cap is only a fraction of that 4.36 billion, and that's at prices that are below where we're actually at. It would probably be worth closer to 5 billion at today's silver price and today's gold price. So let's just say it's worth 500 and some million, but the project's worth 5 billion. What kind of multiple should this project actually get?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think that the re-rate potential is pretty strong here because it's also in a fantastic jurisdiction, and the area that it's in, it's starting to get hot right now. And we had Centerra Gold come in and take 9.9% because their Chemist project is only 45 clicks away from the Lawyers Ranch project. It's going to feed that mill. So, this I think this will get a re-rate pretty quickly here.
No, this re-rate just simply coming off of the PFS and people starting to realize what is possible at this project. Because, look, we look back to the beginning of this year, the company was trading almost around 50 cents Canadian. It's up over $2 right now. So this is 4x higher just through this year. Re-rating, again, you think simply as the market digests this PFS?
And as the silver price goes higher, I think you're going to realize that, hey, this is a very strong silver producer when it gets into production. So I think the silver price going higher will help it as well.
Well, Dave, another factor that's kind of a wild card, and our buddy Brian Lenny has brought this up on the show before with regards to Thesis, is what's really animated people about the Tutagon is some of the copper gold hits that A-Mark and that TDG possibly have. And so Thesis is also testing that thesis, and they are drilling deeper copper holes. What would it mean if they started finding copper porphyries at depth?
Oh yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing about Thesis is they still have exploration upside potential also. They're going to be drilling more infill. They're going to be bringing those indicated ounces into it inferred. So before the PFS, I mean before the feasibility study. But yeah, I mean they've still got a lot of exploration upside on the property as well.
Yeah, then the question being how much dilution is that? But at a almost $600 million market cap, they definitely have some run room to drill and spend out there. Let's also move on and get your thoughts on that Newmont Barrick merger. Look, it's in the works, but also sounds like Newmont doesn't want some of Barrick's assets. So now they're proposing the spin out of all these other assets. Very similar, I guess, in a way to what we have seen with some of these majors merging over the last couple of years, where the merger or acquisition happens and they start offloading these assets that the acquirer doesn't want. Seems like Barrick is trying to get ahead of this to make this merger go through. What's your take on what's going on here with these two majors?
Yeah, that's interesting because look, several years ago, Barrick took on, I forget the name of the company, when they got Mark Bristow CEO, when they took out that company. And
Randgold.
then Randgold, right? When they took over Randgold for Bristow to become the CEO, they pretty much doubled their production, and now they're going backwards and they're spinning off. It looks like they want to spin off their African assets and be a smaller company. And now they're talking about doing this thing with Newmont. So it's really interesting how these other companies are getting bigger and Newmont and Barrick is getting smaller. And I know the big reason was because of all the problems they had over there in Mali about spinning off all their African assets. So yeah, it's interesting to see that.
Well, Dave, that brings up a wider discussion on M&A in general and how when you see companies try to merge, sometimes there's things they like and things they don't like inside of it, and there's the sum of the parts doesn't necessarily mean that those two companies make sense together. I'm thinking of something like Argonaut when it came together, and it was merging with Alamos. They only wanted the Magino mine, and so all the other assets were parsed out into Heliostar and into Integra. Should more companies be looking at that model where they say, hey, why don't we combine, but then spin out some other companies or divest some projects? Because it seems like there could be some interesting business combinations if they shed some assets and then combined different assets.
Yes, and I think they are. I think you're going to see more of that for sure.
So, Dave, where does this all leave the juniors then? The majors keep on acquiring. each other. The juniors seem to take on some of these other assets, and some of these companies have built pretty decent companies, or at least have gotten the love from the market on the back of this. But again, we haven't seen the major money trickle down to the juniors. So, what does that mean for juniors that have that whole strategy of we're going to get acquired?
Yeah, well, you are kind of starting to see it in some of them. Some of these juniors that are building these mines and they're getting close to production. I mean, these are the juniors that could possibly be mid tiers in the foreseeable future because they have yet to be taken out, or then maybe they won't get taken out, and their market cap is too high right now to be taken over by a company. They figured, hey, we've missed the boat on this one. It's no longer cheap for us to get it. So these juniors might become the next mid tiers. But as far as your question is concerned about some of these juniors that are single asset juniors, I still believe we're going to see more M&A increase here in the very near future as the gold price continues to rise. But like we said before, I'm certainly hope some of these companies that we're holding don't get taken out too soon. Like we talked about the last time we spoke, Probe is getting taken out a lot for a lot cheaper than we thought. We're still hoping for a bidding war on that one, but a four bagger is not what we were in for. We were hoping for at least a 10 bagger for what that company has as far as an asset is concerned in a fantastic jurisdiction.
Well, Dave, just two more quick M&A deals we can mention of note that just recently were announced. On the 28th of November, Montage Gold announced that it was acquiring African gold. So this makes sense because it's in country. It would complement their existing development stage project at Kone. And so it's a nice bolt-on development stage project for them. And then the other thing we saw was Endeavour Silver, because it's building Terra and it just purchased Colpa in Peru. It doesn't need Bolanitos anymore. So Guanajuato Silver has picked up that silver mine from Endeavour as Endeavour graduates up to the next size and scale. So, what do you make of either one of those M&A deals?
Yeah, the Montage deal was, fantastic. We love that one, my subscribers and I. That's been in our top 10 for a while, and it's our biggest winner. I think we're up 12 times on it now. And what was nice to see was both of the stocks rose on the announcement of that deal. Montage strengthens its presence in Cote d'Ivoire, and they have another add-on deposit for their hub and spoke Kone project that adds another 900,000 ounces of gold at 2.5 grams per ton. And they already owned a nice chunk of the company, and for 170 million they get another 900,000 ounces. So that was a fantastic deal for them. As far as the Endeavor deal, I own Endeavor in my retirement account, and I like that deal as well. They're concentrating on Terronera. They bought another project in Peru, a nice producer in Peru, so they're eliminating non-core assets. If I was a Guanajuato Silver shareholder, I'd probably like this deal, but they're really diluting there. They're adding via dilution, so their stock really hasn't gone anywhere. They've got a lot of shares out now, and the stock is pretty much hasn't, like I said, it really hasn't gone anywhere during this really sharp move in the mining sector.
So much M&A going on in this bull market. Look, this market is continuing to rip higher. A lot of good wins for a lot of investors, and hopefully it just keeps on going because I know some of these share prices look like they've gotten out of hand when you pull up a shorter term chart, but you pull up a longer term chart and there still could be very much room to run here. But again, we just need the metals prices to keep going that direction and money to keep flowing within the sector. So far, it is happening. It's happened all year, and it seems to really be almost accelerating to at the end of the year. Dave, thank you as always for your comments. Dave Erfle, the founder and editor of the Junior Miner Junky. Click the link in the show notes to visit Dave's website. And Dave, we will touch base with you next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.